Good morning, good morning. Apologies, First Chapter Fun fans. We had some technical issues this morning. We were trying to stream to Facebook via Zoom and it just wasn't working. So we needed to continue the broadcast on Facebook, no, on Instagram. And here we are starting again. Now, the issue is that we still can't broadcast live to Facebook via Zoom for whatever technical reasons. So this will be a recording and we won't be able to see your comments, but please, please, please do leave us comments. So if this is the first time that you've joined an episode of First Chapter Fun, this is episode 53. For 53 days in a row, I have been reading the first chapter of other books, not mine, but other authors' books, since March 17th, actually, until today. But don't be sad that this is the last episode, because I have a little announcement. And I said, maybe I gave the game away a little bit because I said we, although you have seen on different graphics, if you've come across them, that there is a special guest today and a special announcement. So why don't I bring in our special guest? Let me do that right now. So let's see who it is. Knock, knock. Here we are. We have our special guest, Hank Phillippi Ryan, who has joined me for First Chapter Fun, because some of you had asked me, when will you be reading from your own book? And that felt a little, I don't know, a bit strange really to read from my own. And Hank very kindly volunteered to read from Sister Dear. So good morning, Hank. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so honored to be here today. I'm changing the view on this so I can see you better. I'm so honored to be here today to read this. You know, this is, I concocted this with Hannah because every morning at 11:30, she says, this is where every morning at 11:30, we read a first chapter out loud from someone's book, not mine. And I said, at some point it has to be yours. Your Sister Dear is coming out May 26th, is it? And it's such a big deal and so well received. And I said, you can't read it yourself because you are not allowed to say how good it is. That just wouldn't be gracious or elegant or possible, but I can because I love this book and I have read this with jaw-dropping, gasping emotions. It's so good. So I said, please, please, please let me read it. And Hannah said yes.
And I'm so grateful that you're going to read that today. That's just, that's brilliant. Thank you.
Well, so I'm going to pretend that Hannah isn't here, even though she is here, and read this for all of you, just like every day on First Chapter Fun. Can you believe Hannah has done this for 52 days in a row? That is so much work. I mean, you see her just on Facebook and Instagram, looking cool and seamless, and all the graphics come up and all the letters come up and all the words come up and all the authors come to visit and listen, and we all listen raptly as she reads. But she works hours and hours a day on this, so we are so grateful for that. So the least we can do today is to put Hannah Mary McKinnon in the spotlight where she belongs. And I'm so honored that we're reading from Sister Dear today, a page-turning thriller. So Hannah, you just sit back and listen.
I'll just sit back and relax.
Nerve-wracking for me to have the author listening right there.
See, right? That's really nerve-wracking.
It is, and you always say it is when you're reading from a wonderful author and then she's or he is sitting listening to you, knowing every word. So let me introduce you all as to someone who they always say needs no introduction, but when someone says that, I always think, yes, they do. Tell me who this is. So let me read you this official biography. Hannah Mary McKinnon was born in the UK, grew up in Switzerland, and moved to Canada in 2010. After a successful career in recruitment and an unsuccessful Canadian HR startup that prompted an early midlife crisis, I think Hannah wrote this, she made a deal with her husband. She'd follow her creative passion and write a book. Without too much prompting, she quit the corporate world and put fingers to keyboard. While her debut, Time After Time, was a lighthearted rom-com, she quickly transitioned to the dark side. That's how we think of Hannah, right? The dark side. No, not really. Her suspense novels include The Neighbors, Her Secret Son, and Sister Dear, the brand new one. Hannah Mary is known for her "I wasn't expecting that" endings, which is all too true. She lives in Oakville, Ontario with her husband and 3 teenage sons. When not writing, Hannah Mary tries to keep up with feeding them, which she says is nearly impossible. I imagine that's true. And you know where to find Hannah Mary. You found us now here on hannahmarymckinnon.com, and you can find out a lot more. And really, I'm telling you, as a pal, don't listen to this, Hannah. Go grab this book. As Hannah always says, not right now, but when this is over. So I know this is called First Chapter Fun, but I have taken a little bit of liberty here because the first chapter of Sister Dear is just a couple of pages and it's fabulous, but I wanted to give you a little bit more. So now that I control the microphone, I'm going to have it be first chapter fun and a little bit of first chapter fun, second chapter fun, a little bit of second chapter fun as well. So here is Sister Dear by Hannah Mary McKinnon. I'm just going to put these on briefly. Chapter 1. The police didn't believe me. A jury wouldn't have either if I'd gone on trial, and most definitely not the judge. My attorney had more than a few reservations about my story. Miss Allerton hadn't said as much. She didn't need to. I saw it in her eyes and could tell by the way she shuffled and reshuffled her papers, as if doing so might shake my lies clean off the pages, leaving only the truth behind in her inky royal blue swirls. After our first meeting, I'd concluded she must have known early on, before she shook my hand with her icy fingers, that I was a liar. Before she'd walked into the room in shiny 4-inch heels, she'd no doubt decided she'd heard my excuses, or a variation thereof, from countless clients already. I was yet another person claiming to be innocent, another criminal who'd remained adamant they'd done nothing wrong, it wasn't their fault, honest despite the overwhelming amount of evidence to the contrary, a wall of impending doom surrounding me. And still, at the time, I believed the only reason Miss Allerton had taken my case pro bono was because of the amount of publicity it gave her firm. Reducing my sentence, for there would be one, would amplify her legacy as a hotshot lawyer. I'd accepted her help. There was no other option. I needed her knowledge, her expertise, saw her as my final hope. I now know her motivations were something else I'd miscalculated. All hope extinguished. Game over. If I'm being fair, the judgments Miss Allerton and other people had made about me weren't completely wrong. I had told lies, some anyway. While that stripped away part of my claim to innocence, it didn't mean I was entirely guilty. Not of the things everybody said I'd done, things I had no choice but to confess to, despite that being my biggest lie of all. But I'll tell you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but. I'll start at the beginning and share everything that happened, every last detail leading up to one fateful night, the night someone died because of me, the night I lost you too. I won't expect your forgiveness. Our relationship, or lack thereof, will have gone way beyond that point. No, all I can hope for is that my side of the story will one day help you understand why I did the things I did and why I have to do the things I've not yet done. Chapter 2. Okay. Chapter 2, 15 months earlier. My heels dragged as my legs took shorter steps than usual, an unmistakable sign my feet weren't heading in a direction I wanted to go. The hems of my old frayed jeans dragged on the sidewalk, soaking up the gray slush, the final vestige of the snow most of Maine had received earlier that Friday afternoon, dumping the majority of it right on top of Portland. The freezing, soggy fabric of my pants had turned into frozen fingers snatching at my ankles, and I cursed myself twice. Once for not believing the weatherman when he said snow would hit mid-October, and again because I donned comfy sneakers as a pathetic sign of protest. At almost 30 and an East Coast native, I really should have known better. While my heart protested, my brain made me quicken my pace toward Monroe Hospice. I tried hard not to imagine what Dad might look like today. If I did, I feared I'd turn around, scuttle home to my little apartment, which had become more of a refuge since his diagnosis. Pancreatic cancer, the inoperable terminal kind, the kind doctors had said 8 weeks ago, although it felt as if multiple lifetimes had passed since our world had been turned upside down. I had refused to believe it when Dad told me, insisted they'd made a mistake, handed him somebody else's test results by accident. The thought of losing my father, the one person I cared for the most in the entire world, filled me with horror. At the rate of his decline, we'd be lucky if he made it another month. I'd barely slept since the diagnosis, the only advantage being I'd stayed ahead of schedule with the website designs for my clients, even though I caught myself staring into space far too often. Working so much couldn't prevent my mind from traveling the path marked life after Dad. It was bleak down there, empty and cold, lonely, a place filled with despair, anger, and hate, some place no one should be forced to go, yet a destination almost everyone ended up at some point, and in my case, before I'd done something, anything, to make him proud. I hoisted my bag over my shoulder, wishing for the umpteenth time I'd emptied it before setting off and had left my notebook and sketchbook and camera at home. "You're an idiot," I said, and shifted the weight. Even if Dad let me take his picture, I'd be incapable of focusing the lens on him without bursting into tears. I took another few steps, caught sight of my reflection in a store window, and quickly looked away, stuffed my hands deeper into the pockets of my jacket, which already bunched more snugly around my middle than it had when I bought it at the thrift store a few weeks ago. We've never been on good terms, Mirrors and I. Unhappiness did peculiar things to people. For me, it translated into lank, greasy hair, a total lack of makeup, and a pattern of shoveling as much comfort food, translation, any food, down my throat as fast as I possibly could. I'd never lost anyone before, nobody close anyway, no one I'd sobbed into my pillow for or bargained over with the higher power. It petrified me. I shuddered, pulled the hood of my jacket over my head to stop the bitter winds from assaulting my ears, and remembered our conversation about the technical arrangements for his funeral, more specifically, what he didn't want. "Get them to play Another One Bites the Dust by Queen," he'd said. "Dad, there's no way I..." "Kidding. Knocking on Heaven's Door will do fine, but not Bob Dylan's version. It's too soft. I want Guns N' Roses, and make sure it's the one with Slash's awesome guitar riff." "Are you serious?" "Deadly serious." "You're not funny." "Course I am. Anyway, we'll make the whole thing cheap and cheerful." "Cheerful? You expect your funeral to be cheerful?" "Yes, Eleanor," he said, his smile disappearing. "It's to be a celebration. I don't want you to be sad. Promise me you won't be sad." I shook my head and looked up at the swirling skies, so lost in thought I'd already arrived at the Monroe Hospice, a stone-clad two-story building tucked away on a dead-end road. Despite my stalling tactics, the walk from my apartment on Sherman Street hadn't taken much more than an hour. And not for the first time, I wondered why they built Monroe in an area called Pleasantdale. When I'd shared this with Dad during my last visit, he'd laughed. At least it's close to the cemetery. Transport will be cheap," he'd said. And I burst into tears, which had led him to apologize for his crass attempt at gallows humor, blaming the dark English sense of wit he'd inherited from his mother. Taking a deep breath to prepare myself, I pushed open the doors. When I got closer to Dad's room and heard voices, specifically my mother's, I paused. Her unmistakable tone, considerably more nasal and irritating than usual, still had the power to send jolts down my spine, never mind moving out as soon as I'd finished high school, determined never to depend on her again. I hadn't expected her to be at the hospice. The fact that she'd visited Dad a few days earlier had already been a surprise, considering she'd ordered him to pack his stuff and leave almost 20 years ago, and had hardly spoken to him since. He'd only mentioned she'd visited because I told him I'd spotted her coming out of Monroe and had ducked behind a fir tree to avoid her. It had been at least 6 months since I'd had any contact with her. Almost a year since we'd been in the same room for my sister Amy's lavish 27th birthday party. Even that amount of time and distance hadn't been enough to treat the festering wounds or get rid of her voice, which constantly berated me in my head. I'd always questioned, but never understood, why she despised me. I'd asked Dad too, but he hadn't given me a proper answer, only said she was a complicated woman. As much as I pretended I didn't care, part of me still wanted to know. She was caring and loving toward Amy, but only had constant resentment for Dad and me. Yet here she was, at his bedside. Maybe there was still hope she'd give treating him like an actual human being another go. After all, she must have loved him once. I leaned against the door, tried to hear their conversation, and hoped she was on the verge of leaving, in which case I'd slip into the bathroom or find a supply cupboard to sneak into. "I still don't understand, Bruce," she said to Dad without a hint of warmth. Her glacial tone would freeze hell over when she left this world. No way she would go anywhere but south when she did. "I've already told you it's done," my father said. "I'm not changing my mind." Although determined, his voice sounded throaty, no doubt in equal parts from his illness and the effort of standing up to my mother. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice veering into banshee territory. "Why?" If she wasn't careful, the nurses would ask her to leave. I crossed my fingers, but my mother regained some of her composure and brought the volume down a notch. "What exactly are you trying to accomplish?" "I'm not trying to accomplish anything, Sylvia," Dad replied. "I'm doing what's fair. Everything's split 50-50 between the girls. Why are you so upset?" "It won't be much, so—" "Exactly my point," my mother said. "You were never much of a provider, were you? You barely have anything now, and Nellie—" "Eleanor," Dad said. "She hates being called Nellie." "Well, there's Nellie for you," Mother sniffed, and I imagined her steely eyes drilling into Dad as he dared defy her. She always was overly sensitive. "Because Amy sang Nellie the Elephant on a loop for 3 years, remember?" Dad said, and I wanted to rush in and hug him. "The pair of you have poked fun at her for years. You know it's why she's convinced she's ugly. She thinks her legs look like highway bridge supports." "If she's that bothered about her looks, why doesn't she do something about them? I did, and well before her age. I've kept my weight in check ever since, and—" "There's nothing wrong with her, Sylvia," Dad said, sounding exhausted. My mother sighed deeply. I wondered how much self-control she'd burned through trying not to argue with a dying man. Not all of it, apparently, because she clicked her tongue before quietly saying, "Eleanor doesn't need money." "How would you know? You never speak to her." "The phone works both ways. Besides, you said she's perfectly content with her freelance job, her little apartment with the old windows. And don't forget, she's never had the same ambitions my Amy has." My Amy. How often had I heard those words? My sister, the golden child, the girl wonder, the rising star actor living in LA, who'd been blessed multiple times over by the good gene fairy and had fallen into the unlimited pool of talent. Me, the dispensable foresight, the unnecessary prologue to my mother's childbearing life. I was the tubby one, the dowdy one, the disappointment. Now, as the toxic green-eyed monster inside me snarled, I pulled its leash tight. Bitterness, jealousy, and resentment had to be some of the most unattractive traits bestowed on mankind, and, in my case at least, the hardest ones to change. "I don't know why you're insisting on giving Eleanor anything at all." My mother's voice had filled with her special blend of acrid determination that brought the fiercest of opponents to their knees, accepting their fate with bowed heads as she readied her proverbial sword. Not this time, I decided. Not with the sick man, my dad, as her victim. But before I could take a step forward, she spoke again, her next words changing my life forever. You're forgetting one thing, Bruce, she said. Eleanor isn't your daughter. Ah, that's so amazing. I just love, I did not see that coming in the book. Readers, when you read this, this is the first chapter of Sister Dear, which we read with the gracious permission of Mira Publishers, the fabulous Mira. And I'm telling you that first chapter is an indication of just more surprises to come. It's so seamlessly, beautifully layered and textured and full of subtext that I don't even want to go into, but you will love every minute of it. What a joy to read, Hannah. Thank you for allowing me to do that.
No, thank you. It's just so special to hear you read the first chapter and first two chapters from the book. That was lovely. And I found myself chuckling, which is a good sign, I hope. So,
it's funny when you hear someone else, when you read The Murder List, one of the great days in my life, I was sometimes thinking, oh, I wrote that. How interesting. There's a little bit of a distance between you writing the book and then realizing that it's out there for other people to read. And you hear it in your head as you're writing it in your own voice, but then you hear someone else attempt to create the mood and the sensibility that you've tried to portray in the book.
That was amazing. It was great. And it is really funny because right now I will very soon be starting work on book 6. So that Sister Dear is book 4, book 5 is with my editor. So, but it's good to have that distance because I don't know how you feel about your book sometimes, but by the time I get to the point where I send it, the first draft at least, well, the first draft my editor sees, my 7 millionth, but
yes, exactly.
The first one she sees, saying that I'm sick of them would be perhaps a little bit harsh, but I just need to have some distance. So the last time I looked at Sister Dear would have been, I guess maybe September, the last round of proof edits or something like that would have probably been September, October maybe. So it's really fun to hear it again. You kind of fall back in love with the characters you create, and I do like Eleanor. I have a polka dot top in her honor, but I won't tell you why.
Well, you know, because you've read it. Yes. I have read it. Yes, and that is something to remember. And I hope when you all read this, I can say this because I'm Hannah's pal, go buy this book right now. No, okay, not right now.
Right now.
But as soon as this is over, this book is a treasure. And your first chapter fun readings have been such a joy for all of us over these 53 days you've done this.
Days,
and it sort of started, did you ever think it would even go this long?
No, definitely not. When I started it, it was saying it was a joke is too far. I made a comment. I was in a Facebook group conversation or something with a few author friends, and we were freaking out a little bit because we have books coming out during the coronavirus, during the pandemic, and wondering how that would change the face of book launches. Obviously, all in-person events had already been cancelled. We knew they would be imminently if they hadn't been already. And we were trying to find ways of helping each other promote our books. Because there's only so many times you can say, hey, I've written a book, here's my book. Hey, have you seen my book? Here's my book. And I wanted to I'm not very good at that. I prefer promoting other people's stuff rather than my own, And I said, well, what if I read the first chapter of your books every day? I could read it from a different book. What do you think? And no word of a lie, within 3 days, I think it was, I had over 40 people lined up. It was incredible.
who wouldn't want you to, with your gorgeous voice and you're so talented, you're such a talented reader.
Oh, well, thank you.
And who wouldn't want that? I mean, it's such an honor to have you read my book and the 52 other books that you've read. What a treat for the author and what a treat for the readers. It's like having a little special story time at that 11:30 in the morning every day. It was funny. Somebody said she reads books on Facebook, and I said, yeah. And they said, that's kind of boring. Why would you do that? And I said, out loud. She reads them.
Oh, she thought I just sat there in silence.
Watch Hannah read. Oh, it's so interesting. Yeah. It's very zen.
That would be very zen.
But you practice reading. And you take time and care. You must take time and care in reading these because you're so cinematic, and it's really a joy to hear. So, but then it just grew, right? As you said on Facebook, it just grew legs, and everyone loved it, and you get so many people joining, and you save the videos so you can go back and read them.
Everyone can go back on Instagram, on my feed, and on Facebook on my author page, both of them Hannah Mary McKinnon, and watch to their heart's content. But I had no clue that it would grow legs as quickly as it did and as long as they are. And it was a bit daunting as well, thinking, oh my goodness, now all of a sudden, because I'd have authors write and ask if they could participate, and I didn't want to say no. It's lovely to be asked, but I also need to have time to write my own books. And every day for 53 days has been really fun. There's absolutely no question, but sustaining a daily reading is tough. It's hard. And then something happened. A certain somebody contacted me. So
this was all, this was all on this was a selfish thing, because I was going to, when I heard that this was going to be over, I was so sad about that. And Hannah and I were talking about that. I think it was just in the getting ready to read the murder list. And Hannah and I were talking, and she said it was going to end on May 8th, I guess today. And I was so sad about that. I said, I'm going to miss this. I'm such a fan of First Chapter Fun and all the people who come every day, and there are so many and growing, who look forward to this moment with you every morning at 11:30. People are going to be so sad to miss that. I said, couldn't you just keep it going for a while? We all thought this disastrous going outside would be over, certainly, or we hoped so. Now it doesn't seem to be. And I said, you're such a respite, such a golden moment for people. Couldn't you possibly keep going? And I know you wanted to, but this is not only reading and administration, but graphics and technical and Facebook and emails and posting. And you all don't have any idea how much work Hannah does. And I learned when she told me, and I thought, oh my golly. And so I said, I'd be happy to help. If you want to continue it in some way, just let me know what I can do. I think you said something like, how are you at reading? So
yes,
something like
right. that. And so it is our absolute pleasure and with great delight that we can share that we are continuing First Chapter Fun. And I say we because it is Hank and myself. We will be reading twice a week, every Tuesday and every Thursday. The days with a T, that's the days with a T, come and have tea with Hank and Hannah at 11:30. Now there is 11:30 Eastern, as always, but just on Tuesdays and Thursday. And there is a little bit of a change in terms of setup, because logistically, it would have become a bit complicated to always broadcast on my Instagram and author Facebook page. And so we have created a brand new Instagram account, which is at First Chapter Fun, dead easy, just all in one word, no hyphens, no underscores, no nothing, just First Chapter Fun. And there is a new Facebook group also called First Chapter Fun. And already on Tuesday, we are broadcasting for the first time, and we have let me get this up, the Wife Stalker. There we go. That will be our first new format of First Chapter Fun on Tuesday at 11:30 Eastern on Instagram at First Chapter Fun, and in the newly created Facebook group First Chapter Fun. So not right now, but once you've watched the video, go and follow us on Instagram and go and request to join the group in Facebook.
I mean, it'll be interesting because we'll put up a format saying to remind you to go to First Chapter Fun, because I know you all have the habit of going to Hannah Mary McKinnon's page, and still do go to Hannah Mary McKinnon's page and mine, Hank Phillippi Ryan, author. But First Chapter Fun, because it's both of us on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11:30 reading, we decided it would be easier just to have one place for you to go. And for a couple of days, you'll get to join First Chapter Fun. And that's going to be great, because we'll know who you are. We'll know you're the stalwart first people ever to join First Chapter Fun. But from then on, and wow, Hannah, we have authors scheduled for a long time. Fabulous
long time.
Authors.
We have them scheduled up until, I think I just lost the list because I turned off one of my screens. So we have authors scheduled until middle of September, many names that you will recognize because they are New York Times best-selling authors. And we hope that we will continue the series. Here we are. Let me open that again.
I mean, this is not only authors who you love and whose books you yearned and wait for, but also new authors, because one of the goals that we have here also is to introduce you to your new favorite authors, people whose books you might not have read yet. And we hope to introduce you to those people too. So the schedule is amazing, and there'll be a surprise every Tuesday and Thursday about who the next author will be.
Yes, so at the end of the episode we'll always announce which book we'll be reading from for the next one. So we hope that lots of people will join, and the best way to keep this going is to gain traction and a wider audience, and we need your help doing that. So follow us on Instagram at First Chapter Fun, repost and share the post and tell all your friends and family, and same with Facebook as well. Join the group and then invite your friends to join us as well, and we can expand the audience and bring more authors in, hopefully, because there have been so many who have contacted us, and the publishers who have graciously given us permission to read every book from which we read, of course. So it's going to be great. It's going to be so much fun. I'm so pleased that you asked me to continue this. It's so much fun.
Wouldn't we? I mean, all of you who are out there listening to this, weren't you going to miss this? I mean, what would we all be doing at 11:30 every morning? We'd be yearning for Hannah. We'd be yearning for our first chapter. So I'm so thrilled to be invited and asked and allowed to participate in this, and to be able to share some wonderful books with you. And we do, we'll be reading all genres. The brand new Sister Dear by our own Hannah Mary McKinnon, which comes out May 26th, is a suspense, psychological domestic suspense, a real page turner. But we'll also have women's fiction and mysteries, a tiny bit of science fiction, some spy thrillers, just to sort of whet your appetite and give you a little bit of a taste of something that you might not ordinarily have picked up. That's a book that you will definitely love.
That's right. And I think on August the 1st we might have something extra special. We might just have Hank's new book scheduled for the 4th of August already.
Well, I'm very excited about that. I can show you this now. I just happen to have this.
Oh, look at that.
The First to Lie. Can you see this?
I can see it perfectly, yes.
Yes. And this is so pretty. The Precious is coming out.
And sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, but Sister Dear comes out first. I'm delighted about The First to Lie. I'm delighted about The Murder List, which just made the USA Today bestseller list. I haven't even put that on Facebook yet. I haven't even put that in. You're the first to know this. Very thrilled.
So exciting.
About The Murder List. Let me see. Get this. The Murder List, now a USA Today bestseller.
That's beautiful. I still think that's you. I know you say it isn't, but it oh yeah. That's excellent. Oh, congratulations. I can't wait.
Go to my Instagram page, which is Hank Phillippi Ryan. Is it Hank Phillippi Ryan or Hank P. Ryan? Something like that. You'll see all the book faces that people have done of the murder list. It's hilarious. Anyway, our big news, Hannah's big news. First chapter fun is not over. It's continuing every Tuesday and Thursday.
The days with a T. The days at 11:30 a.m. on First Chapter Fun on Instagram and the newly created Facebook group First Chapter Fun. So we hope that you will join. We hope that we will see you there, and we can continue bringing you these great reads and discover new authors and new genres and entertain you throughout and beyond this whole COVID pandemic. We hope that the series will continue for, well, as long as you'll have us, really.
And don't forget, Hannah's birthday is Sunday.
Happy
Mother's Day to you all, and happy birthday, Hannah.
Thank you.
You are our present. You are our birthday present, and we are so grateful to you. And this can be our present to you, is go by, sister dear.
That's very sweet. Yes, that would be great. Wonderful. So let me show you the book that we'll be reading from again. I always have to redo this on the little fire thing. So here we go. The Wife Stalker. This will be Tuesday's book, the brand new format of First Chapter Fun on Instagram, First Chapter Fun, and in the newly created Facebook group, First Chapter Fun, on Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. So I hope that we'll be able to see people then. And shall we say it? Shall we say it? As always, until then, please stay safe,
stay kind,
and we'll see you next week. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching.